The wind howled across the jagged cliffs, carrying whispers of a kingdom long forgotten by the living. In the heart of this desolate land, the black citadel of Aelthar rose like a wound against the sky, its spires twisting upward like skeletal fingers grasping at a storm-laden moon. No villager dared approach, for the tales spoke of a king who was neither fully alive nor fully dead, a being who ruled with a shadowed hand and eyes that could see the truths of the soul. Sister Alara tightened her cloak against the chill, her small procession of pilgrims behind her moving silently along the winding path. Each stone seemed to hum beneath her feet, resonating with a power she could feel but not name. The abbess's instructions had been clear. She must enter the citadel, speak to the master of its halls, and retrieve the Book of Laments, a sacred manuscript hidden for centuries. But the stories she had heard, of those who entered and were never seen again, curled in the pit of her stomach like serpents. She paused at the threshold, her hand trembling as she pushed open the massive oak doors. The hinges groaned like ancient spirits disturbed. Inside, darkness reigned, thick and suffocating, but a single flickering torch at the far end revealed a long hall, lined with statues of warriors long dead, their faces frozen in expressions of eternal anguish. The air was heavy, carrying the faint scent of earth and iron. "Ilara," a voice called softly from the shadows. It was smooth, almost musical, yet edged with something older, something that whispered of hunger and sorrow. She started, her heart racing, but she squared her shoulders. "I am Sister Alara of the Order of Luminara," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I seek the Book of Laments. The abbess sent me." From the darkness, a figure emerged, tall, impossibly poised, dressed in garments that seemed woven from midnight itself. The man moved with an elegance that was both frightening and magnetic. His eyes glowed faintly, red and golden, and his gaze felt like it could pierce through every secret she carried in her heart. "I am King Werewolf," he said, his voice like velvet brushed with steel. "And you, little nun, have walked straight into the heart of shadows. Few are brave, or foolish, enough to come here unbidden." Ilara bowed, instinctively lowering her gaze. "I did not come unbidden. The abbess—" She stopped, sensing that words alone were insufficient. Vaelric's presence seemed to bend the air, drawing all attention toward him. He tilted his head, studying her with a patience that made her skin prickle. "I can feel the light in you, though you do not yet understand it. And yet, you carry fear, as all mortals do. Do not be afraid, Sister Alara. Fear is often the first step toward understanding." Her throat tightened, and she realized she had been holding her breath. I will do as I was sent," she whispered. Valric's lips curved in a faint smile, though it did not reach the cold fire in his eyes. "Very well, but know this. The Book of Laments is not a mere tome. It carries the history of souls, both damned and redeemed. To touch it is to see not only the past, but the hidden threads of your own heart." A shiver ran down Ilara's spine. She felt as if invisible hands had brushed against her very thoughts. "And why do you guard it?" she asked. The king's expression darkened, the shadows of his centuries-old grief settling around him. "Because some truths are too dangerous to walk freely among the living, and some sins must never be forgotten." Ilara took a hesitant step forward, her hands clasped tightly. "I am ready. I will do whatever is needed to take it back to the abbess." Valric's gaze softened briefly, though a storm still lingered behind his eyes. "We shall see. But be warned, child. The citadel does not yield its secrets lightly. Many who enter lose more than they expect." A sudden chill swept through the hall, extinguishing the torchlight, plunging them into darkness. A whisper of movement echoed from the walls, and Alara instinctively stepped back. Shadows seemed to writhe along the stone, forming shapes that were not quite human, not quite animal. "You feel them, do you not?" Valric murmured beside her. "The remnants of those who came before. Their anguish clings to the stones, a silent warning to those who dare trespass. They are restless, but not beyond reach, if one knows how to speak to them." Ilara swallowed hard, trying to steady her racing heart. I can feel it," she admitted, voice trembling. They are calling, but I cannot answer." "Not yet," Valric said, stepping closer. His presence was overwhelming, like standing at the edge of a cliff overlooking a stormy sea. "First, you must understand yourself. Only then will the Citadel's truths open to you." Her pulse quickened, and she realized the gravity of her task. This was no ordinary mission. The Book of Laments was not just an artifact. It was a mirror of the soul, a test of courage, and perhaps a bridge between the living and the eternal. As they moved deeper into the castle, the walls seemed to breathe, each step echoing like a heartbeat. Valric led her through halls that twisted impossibly, defying reason. Candles flickered with unnatural light, casting dancing shadows that whispered secrets just beyond comprehension. At last, they arrived before a massive door of blackened steel, etched with runes that glowed faintly red. Valric rested his hand upon it, and the runes flared brighter, humming with power. "Beyond this door lies what you seek," he said. "But be warned, to open it is to confront both darkness and desire. One cannot take the book lightly, nor can one leave unchanged." Alara's hand trembled as she reached for the handle. The cold metal seemed to draw her in, whispering promises of knowledge and visions of truth. She hesitated, knowing that the path she chose now could alter her forever. Valric's gaze met hers, unflinching. "Remember, sister, some doors once opened cannot be closed. Are you prepared to see what lies beyond?" Her breath caught, and for a moment she felt the weight of centuries pressing down upon her. The wind outside moaned like a mourning spirit, and the citadel seemed to lean closer, eager to witness what would happen next. I am," she said, her voice steady, though her heart raced like a drum in a battle hall. Valric inclined his head, a shadow of approval in his expression. "Then let the shadows speak, and may your heart be strong enough to listen." With a shared glance, the two of them pushed the door open. A darkness unlike any other rolled out, thick and alive, swirling like a living river of night. The air was heavy with magic and the echo of voices long silenced. Ilara stepped forward, drawn by both fear and fascination. The book was within reach, but so too were questions she had not yet imagined, secrets that would challenge everything she believed. As the door closed behind them with a thunderous clang, the faintest hint of a smile touched Valric's lips. In that moment, Ilara understood. This journey was only beginning, and nothing would ever be the same again. Outside the citadel, the wind carried a single whisper. "The light comes willingly, but the darkness watches patiently." And somewhere deep within the shadows, eyes gleamed, waiting for the moment when fate would demand its price. The darkness inside the citadel was suffocating, thick as silk and sharp as knives. Ilara's eyes strained against it, but she could make out only the faint glimmer of red runes pulsating on the walls, as if the castle itself were alive and breathing around her. Each step she took echoed in the vast chamber, and for a moment she felt the pull of the shadows, a quiet insistence that whispered doubts and fears she had never known. Valric walked beside her, a silent guide. His presence was a mixture of safety and unease. The warmth of life seemed to cling faintly to him, yet there was a chill, too, the icy reminder that he was a creature not fully of the world of the living. "You must be careful," he said softly, his voice like smoke curling around her mind. The citadel tests those who enter, not with steel or fire, but with the truths they carry within, your own fears, your own desires. These are the doors the shadows will open first. Ilara swallowed hard, gripping the folds of her cloak. I do not know if I can face them," she admitted, though her voice betrayed a mixture of fear and curiosity. She felt the weight of the mission pressing on her shoulders, heavier than any armor she had ever worn. Velric paused, turning to her. His eyes, red gold and unreadable, held a strange intensity. "Do not try to fight it," he said. "The shadows do not yield to force. You must understand them. Only then can you move forward." They reached a central chamber where the runes glowed brighter. In the center lay a shallow pool of water, black as obsidian, perfectly still. It reflected no light, but as Ilara approached, she thought she saw faint movements beneath the surface, ripples like slow breaths. "This is the trial of shadows," Velric explained, his gaze fixed on her. "Look into the pool, and you will see what you fear most. Only by confronting it can you claim the path forward. Only by understanding yourself can the Book of Laments be revealed to you." Ilara hesitated. Her reflection shimmered in the black water, but as she stared longer, it shifted. She saw herself kneeling before a crowd, pleading and rejected, her voice ignored. She saw the faces of those she had failed, the choices she had not made, the moments where fear had silenced her. Her breath caught. I cannot bear it," she whispered. Velric stepped closer, his presence grounding her. "Fear is part of the trial," he said, though his tone held something almost human beneath the ancient calm. "You will endure it, and you will emerge stronger if you let yourself see the truth." With trembling hands, Ilara knelt beside the pool. The shadows seemed to reach for her, curling around her cloak and hair, whispering temptations and regrets. She wanted to close her eyes, to turn away, but something inside her compelled her to look deeper. And then she saw him. Not Velric, not yet, but a figure shrouded in darkness, his face obscured, standing among those she had failed. He extended a hand, and the whispers grew louder, accusing, pleading, mourning. Her chest ached, and tears stung her eyes, but she forced herself to meet the gaze of the shadowed figure. "You cannot escape yourself," the voice murmured, soft and echoing. "You must accept your past, or it will consume you." Ilara felt a shudder ripple through her. The shadows coiled tighter, pressing against her mind. Yet amidst the fear, a spark of defiance ignited. She straightened her back, raised her chin, and whispered, "I will not hide. I will face it, no matter how dark." For a moment, the shadows paused, as if startled by her courage. The water stilled, and the figure slowly dissolved into the pool, leaving only her own reflection staring back. Only then did she realize the reflection no longer trembled. It was calm, resolute, and undeniably herself. Velric's voice broke the silence. "Well done," he said, and for the first time, there was a warmth in his tone, almost like pride. "Few endure the trial of shadows without faltering. You are stronger than I expected." Ilara rose to her feet, her limbs trembling, but her heart steadied by the sense of triumph. She felt changed, as though the citadel had taken something from her and yet given her something in return. Clarity, courage, and a faint understanding of the king beside her. "The book lies ahead," Velric said, gesturing toward a spiral staircase carved into the stone, descending into darkness. "But the trials are not over. The shadows test only the mind and spirit, the heart that remains untested." Ilara's stomach knotted. She had seen her fears, but the notion that her heart might be tested brought a new, unfamiliar unease. Yet she stepped forward, trusting the king, trusting herself, even as the walls seemed to murmur around them, alive with anticipation. The spiral staircase ended in a vast hall, dimly lit by glowing crystals embedded in the walls. The Book of Laments rested upon a pedestal of black marble at the center, its surface etched with runes that pulsed like a heartbeat. The air was thick with magic. The silence was almost unbearable. Ilara approached, her hand shaking as she reached for the book. The moment her fingers brushed the cover, the room shifted. Shadows erupted from the walls, forming into shapes she had never imagined. Some were animals, some were figures of people long dead, and some seemed like twisted versions of herself. They swirled around her, not violent, but oppressive, pressing against her senses, demanding attention. "You see them?" Valric said softly, his hand brushing hers, not touching, but close enough that warmth radiated from his presence. "These are the echoes of the past, the fragments of souls bound to this place. They seek understanding, and they will test you." Ilara closed her eyes and let the shadows surround her. She felt herself being pulled into memories not her own, lives she had never lived, choices she had never made. Yet amidst the chaos, a strange voice whispered, Velric's voice, steady, guiding, reminding her to focus. Slowly, she began to understand. The shadows did not wish to harm her. They sought acknowledgement, compassion, recognition. With each thought of empathy, with each quiet acceptance of the stories around her, the shadows softened, dissolving into the air like mist in sunlight. When she opened her eyes, the Book of Laments glowed softly, welcoming her. She reached for it again, feeling a weight in her hand, not heavy, but significant, as though the book itself recognized her resolve. Valric stepped closer, his gaze intense, yet guarded. "You have passed the trial of empathy and courage. Few mortals would endure such tests. Few would reach this point without faltering." Ilara's chest heaved. I understand now. The book, it is not just a record. It is a reflection, a mirror of what is lost and what may be saved." Valric inclined his head, a rare smile touching his lips. "Yes, and yet one more trial remains, and it is the most difficult of all. The trial of trust." Ilara's heart skipped a beat. "Trust? In you?" He did not answer immediately. Instead, he turned his gaze to the shadows still lingering near the walls. "The citadel tests not only your spirit, but the choices you make. There is a path forward, but it requires more than courage or understanding. It requires willingness to step beyond fear and to believe in what is unseen." Ilara swallowed, realizing that the journey was far from over. The citadel had revealed part of itself, but the heart of the mystery, and the king beside her, remained hidden. She felt drawn to him, yet wary. She felt an attraction, yes, but also a deep, inexplicable reverence and caution. And in that moment, as the shadows curled softly around the room and the Book of Laments pulsed like a living heart, Ilara understood one undeniable truth. The citadel had not only tested her, it had begun to change her. She was no longer just a nun sent on a mission. She was a participant in a story far larger than herself, a story of darkness, redemption, and something even the shadows dared not name. Valric's eyes met hers, holding questions she could not yet answer. "Are you ready for the final trial?" he asked, his voice a whisper of wind and fire. Ilara's hand rested on the book. Her pulse raced. She nodded, even though her mind trembled with uncertainty. I am ready." The crystals along the walls brightened, casting long, twisted shadows that stretched toward them. The air vibrated with anticipation, as if the citadel itself held its breath. And then, from the deepest corner of the hall, A single echoing whisper cut through the silence. The heart will decide. Will it break, or will it endure? Elara's eyes widened. The final trial was about to begin, and nothing she had faced so far could prepare her for what awaited. The air in the chamber felt heavier now, as if the citadel itself had leaned closer to witness the next stage of Elara's trial. The Book of Laments rested on the black marble pedestal, its runes pulsing softly like the slow heartbeat of some ancient creature. Shadows lingered along the walls, their whispers softer now, expectant, waiting for her to act. Valric's gaze remained fixed on her. There was an intensity in his eyes that made it impossible to look away. It was not merely curiosity or command. It was something older, something that seemed to measure her soul against his own long-lived existence. "The final trial," he said, his voice low, almost hesitant, "is not about fear. It is not about empathy. It is about the heart. Your heart, Sister Elara, and the choices it makes." Elara swallowed. She had faced shadows that clawed at her mind, reflected her fears, and shown her the regrets of countless lives, yet nothing had prepared her for this moment. The trial of the heart, she realized, was not just a test. It was a mirror held to her deepest self, reflecting her desires, her doubts, and the seeds of trust she had not yet dared to plant. How do I begin?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. Valric stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking. "You do not begin with knowledge or strength. You begin by choosing, to believe, to act, to risk. The shadows will show you paths, some true, some false. Your heart will guide you, but only if you let it speak freely." He gestured toward the center of the chamber. The shadows surged, swirling around them, forming shapes that were almost human, almost alive. They shifted and twisted, taking the forms of people Elara had known, friends, mentors, and even strangers whose eyes held silent accusations. Some were kind, others cruel, but all demanded her attention, her judgment. Elara's chest tightened. Her heart pounded not from fear alone, but from the weight of choices she had not yet made, the moral lines she had never crossed, and the trust she had never extended. And then she saw him, Velric, manifested not as the composed, regal king beside her, but as a shadowy figure, his eyes dark pools of expectation. "You must choose," the echoing Velric said, his voice blending with the whispers of the shadows. "Not with logic, not with duty, but with your heart. Choose wisely, for the citadel reflects what lies within." Elara trembled. She had been trained to follow rules, to honor duty, to obey the order of Luminara. But this trial demanded something beyond her training. It demanded vulnerability. It demanded courage of a different kind. She stepped forward, her fingers brushing against the glowing runes of the pedestal. Immediately, the shadows shifted again, forming a corridor of darkness that stretched endlessly ahead. Along this corridor, visions of possible futures flickered, some terrifying, some tender. She saw herself returning to the Abbey, carrying the book, but alone, burdened with the weight of secrets she could not share. She saw herself leaving the citadel with Velric, forging an alliance that defied both mortal and immortal laws. She saw herself succumbing to fear, wandering the halls forever, lost among the shadows. Her breath caught, and tears pricked her eyes. I don't know what is right," she whispered, her voice trembling. Valric stepped beside her. He did not touch her. Yet she could feel the warmth of his presence like sunlight breaking through a storm. "There is no right or wrong here," he said gently. "Only choices that reveal the truth of who you are. Your heart is stronger than you believe, Elara. It has carried you through more than you know." The shadows pulsed with a subtle intensity, reacting to his words. Ilara closed her eyes, focusing inward, listening not to the whispers of the past or the illusions of the future, but to the quiet voice within herself. It spoke of hope, of courage, of a yearning for connection she had never allowed herself to acknowledge. Slowly, she took a step into the corridor. The shadows parted, revealing another vision, Valric, vulnerable, a moment from centuries past where he had been betrayed by those he trusted most. She saw the loneliness behind his regal mask, the isolation that came with immortality. Her heart ached. She had known suffering in her own life, but the weight of his eternity, the centuries of grief and solitude, struck a chord deep within her. For the first time she felt not fear, but empathy so powerful it threatened to overwhelm her. "You are not alone," she whispered softly, more to herself than to him. "And I do not wish to be." The shadow Valric paused, tilting his head, as if recognizing the sincerity in her words. The corridor brightened slightly, the shadows relaxing. The whispering voices faded to a gentle hum, and the air itself seemed lighter. Valric, the real one, moved closer, his expression unreadable, yet softened in a way she could not explain. "Courage comes in many forms," he said quietly. "And trust. Trust is the rarest courage of all." Ilara's gaze met his, and for a fleeting moment, the weight of centuries and duty, fear, and loneliness seemed to dissolve. She understood something fundamental. This trial was not about the Book of Laments alone. It was about connection, about bridging the gap between mortal and immortal, fear and hope, duty and desire. She stepped fully into the corridor, and the shadows parted entirely, revealing the path to the heart of the citadel, where the book pulsed with a quiet, expectant glow. She felt the pull of destiny, the sense that this moment would define not only her life, but the ancient history of the castle itself. Valric followed, his eyes never leaving hers. There was tension in his posture, an unspoken war between centuries of isolation and the unfamiliar stirrings of trust. He spoke finally, his voice soft but firm. "Do you understand what you have done, Ilara? By choosing to move forward with courage and empathy, you have begun to heal not only yourself, but something far older." Ilara nodded, her fingers brushing the cover of the Book of Laments. It was warm beneath her touch, alive with power, and yet comforting, as though it had been waiting for her all along. I think I understand," she said. "It is not about control. It is about acceptance and choice." The shadows around them pulsed one last time, then receded, leaving the chamber still and serene. Valric allowed himself a faint smile, almost human in its simplicity. "You are ready, sister. The final step is yours alone, but know this: what lies ahead will test not only your heart, but the bond you have formed." "The citadel watches, and it does not forgive hesitation." Ilara's gaze returned to him. There was fear, yes, but also determination. She felt the stirrings of something she had never allowed herself to name. Respect, connection, and perhaps a fragile trust that could grow into something more. "I am ready," she said firmly, her hand resting on the book. The room seemed to exhale, the glow of the runes intensifying. And then the shadows coalesced into a final vision, a doorway not of stone, but of light, framing both of them as if the citadel itself were offering a choice. A voice, older than time, whispered, "To step through is to accept the bond of hearts, or to turn away and be lost forever." Ilara's heart raced. She looked at Valric, searching for guidance, for reassurance, but found only the intensity of his gaze, the weight of centuries in his eyes, and the unspoken question. Could she trust him and herself enough to step forward? Her pulse quickened. The trial had begun, but it would not end until the heart decided. And in that moment, as the shadows and light danced together, she understood the truth of the citadel. It was not a test of fear, nor of knowledge, but of the courage to trust, and to open one's heart to the impossible. The doorway of light shimmered before Ilara, a portal framed by the combined energy of the citadel itself and the countless souls whose whispers had guided her. The air was thick with anticipation, and the faint glow of the Book of Laments reflected across the black marble floor. She could feel it, every heartbeat, every pulse of the citadel, matching her own. Valric stood beside her, his eyes fixed on the portal. Unlike before, he did not speak immediately. The centuries of caution, of measured control, lingered in his posture. Yet now, there was a vulnerability there, too, a quiet trust that he did not often show, not even to himself. "The final choice lies with you," he said softly, his voice carrying the weight of years and the faintest note of hope. "Step through, and you accept what the citadel offers. Not just knowledge, but connection, a bond that is rare and precious. Turn away, and the citadel will remain closed to you, and perhaps so will your heart." Ilara's gaze drifted to the shimmering doorway. She had seen fear and shadows, faced illusions of regret and despair, and now stood on the edge of a new truth. She felt the warmth of the book beneath her fingers, the soft hum of ancient magic resonating with her very being. She had been changed by every trial, the trial of shadows, the trial of empathy, and the trial of the heart. Each step had demanded courage, self-awareness, and trust. Her eyes lifted to Valric. There was so much she did not know about him, his past, his loneliness, the centuries he had carried on alone. But she understood enough to see the truth in his gaze. He had endured his own trials, and this moment, this choice, mattered as much to him as it did to her. I am ready," she whispered. It was more than a statement. It was a commitment, a willingness to embrace the unknown, to trust in herself, and to step forward with a heart open to what might come. Valric's lips curved in a rare, faint smile, and he extended a hand, not in command, but in partnership. "Then step forward, Sister Ilara, not as a nun sent on a mission, but as one who has faced shadows and seen the truth of her own heart." Ilara took a deep breath and stepped into the light. The warmth was immediate, embracing her like a gentle tide. Around her, the shadows lifted, swirling into the air like smoke caught in sunlight. The whispers of the past quieted, and the room seemed to breathe, releasing centuries of tension, grief, and longing. As she emerged fully into the light, she felt a surge of clarity. The Citadel's magic had not only tested her, it had accepted her. It had recognized her courage, her empathy, and her ability to trust. And in that recognition, she felt a deep resonance with Valric, a connection that was unspoken, yet undeniable. He followed her into the light, and the final veil of shadow lifted, revealing the heart of the citadel, a vast hall lined with crystal pillars, each glowing faintly with the essence of souls that had passed through before. The Book of Laments hovered above a pedestal of light, its runes now shimmering in gold and silver. "You have succeeded, Ilara," Valric said, his voice echoing softly in the hall. "Not many mortals would have endured what you have. You have faced fear, despair, and temptation, and yet you have remained true to yourself. That is the mark of one worthy of this place." Ilara approached the book, her hands steady now, her mind clear. She had learned the lessons of the citadel. That strength was born from empathy. Courage came from facing one's own heart, and trust, true trust, was the rarest treasure of all. As her fingers touched the glowing runes, she felt a wave of energy pulse through her. The book was alive, a repository of memory, knowledge, and emotion. It revealed to her not just the history of the kingdom, but the potential futures she could shape, the bonds she could form, and the power of a heart unafraid to choose love and understanding over fear. Valric watched her closely, his own expression unreadable for a moment. Then, slowly, he stepped forward, resting his hand beside hers on the book, not overlapping, but close enough that the warmth of his presence mingled with hers. "You see," he said quietly, "the Citadel does not test the weak. It tests those who have the courage to confront themselves and to connect with others. You have done both, Alara." Her gaze lifted to him, and for the first time she saw not the distant, enigmatic king, but the man beneath, the one who had endured centuries of solitude, grief, and loss, yet remained capable of trust, hope, and perhaps something more. The air shimmered around them, and the book's light enveloped the chamber. The shadows that had once pressed against her now danced like leaves in a breeze, harmless and beautiful. Ilara felt a profound sense of peace, a harmony she had never known in the world beyond the Citadel. She began, uncertain of words but certain of feeling. "I never thought I would find this. Not just the book, but understanding, connection. I feel changed." Valric's expression softened. "Change is the reward of courage, of facing the truth. You have earned more than the knowledge of the book, Alara. You have earned the understanding that even in darkness, light can be found, and even the oldest hearts can learn to trust again." Alara's lips curved in a faint, tentative smile. She felt the bond between them, fragile yet undeniable, like a thread connecting two hearts across centuries. "And will the Citadel accept you as well?" she asked gently. Valric's eyes glimmered, a mixture of pride, relief, and something deeper she could not name. "The Citadel has always accepted me in its own way," he said softly. "But perhaps it has not allowed me to fully live until now, until I saw you and the courage of your heart." A silence fell between them, filled not with tension, but with the quiet reverence of two souls recognizing one another. The Citadel hummed softly, as if acknowledging their connection, blessing it in its ancient mystical way. Ilara stepped closer, still holding the book. "What happens now?" she asked, her voice calm but tinged with wonder. Valric's gaze swept over the glowing hall, the pillars, the echoes of the trials they had faced together. "Now, the book returns with you," he said. "But more importantly, we leave this place changed, ready to face the world with the wisdom we have gained. And perhaps we choose our own path together, beyond fear, beyond solitude." Ilara nodded, feeling a profound weight lift from her shoulders. She had entered the Citadel as a novice, uncertain and fearful, yet she was leaving as someone transformed, stronger, wiser, and open to the possibilities of connection, trust, and something resembling hope. Together, they descended the spiral staircase, the glow of the book illuminating the walls. Outside, the storm had cleared, leaving the cliffs bathed in moonlight. The wind carried a gentle calm, as though the Citadel itself had released its grip and granted them a rare blessing. Valric paused at the threshold, looking back at the black spires and twisting shadows. "The Citadel will always remember this moment," he said, "and so will we." Ilara turned to him, her eyes bright with understanding and a quiet determination. "Then let us carry its lessons into the world. Fear and darkness may still exist, but courage, empathy, and trust can overcome them." Valric inclined his head, a rare softness in his expression. "Yes, together we can face whatever comes next." The wind swirled around them, carrying the faint echoes of the past and the promise of the future. For the first time, Alara felt the full weight and freedom of her choice. She had faced shadows, embraced courage, and opened her heart. Not only to the citadel, but to the enigmatic king who had guided her through it all. And as the first rays of dawn touched the cliffs, casting light over the ancient stones, she knew that this was not the end. It was the beginning of a new story, one of hope, trust, and the bond between mortal and immortal, forged in the crucible of shadows and made strong by the courage of the heart. Valric extended his hand once more, and this time, Alara took it willingly. Not as a test, not as a trial, but as a choice to step into the light together, whatever the future might hold. And the citadel, silent now and watching from its ancient heights, seemed to hum in quiet approval, its centuries-old magic at last at peace.